Hi everyone. This is great. I'm happy to be moderating this panel, so I'll ask the panelists to come up on stage and introduce themselves. We can get started for the second last panel of the day. All right. So, I think this is my fifth interoperability panel in 3 months. I just keep getting rolled into these interoperability panels for some reason. But I mean, it's a topic I really enjoy and I think is really interesting, so it's always fun. So maybe starting with you, Susannah, let's get introductions from everyone and we can get into it.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm Susannah. I'm the product lead for the IBC team at the Interchain Foundation. We work on the specifications and the implementation that's used by pretty much all of the 100+ Cosmos chains. So yeah.
I'm Karel, founder of Union. We do zero knowledge-based interoperability. We abide by the IBC spec, so we work on a lot of the stuff that Susannah defines for us, and we extend that a lot as well and add in a ton of new features, such as EVM compatibility, but also move compatibility.
I'm Fig, one of the co-founders of Squid. We're an API and front end for swapping any token between any chain, one click. We've also got developer tools for doing cross-chain actions. We've got integrated to Decentraland, where you can buy clothes in the metaverse with any crypto. Integrated in about 300 or 400 projects at the moment across 75 chains.
Squid's great. Use it many times. Highly recommend using it. I'm John, co-founder of Hyperlane. Hyperlane is an open framework for interoperability, and in layman's terms, what do you want to take away from it? It's a toolkit that lets anyone in this room, anyone in the world, connect any chain on their terms. They can run all the operations, they can handle every bit of it themselves, or they can find someone to help them with that, which our development company is happy to do.
Cool. So here on stage we have sort of very different projects, right? So we have an interoperability standard, we have an implementation of that standard, we have a front-end interoperability product that is built upon itself, a protocol, and then we have a framework for permissionless interoperability. Maybe starting, if we're going to start with some spicy here, how about each of you maybe tell us what you appreciate the most about one other person here on stage, or at least the protocols that they're working on, vis-a-vis your own protocol.
All right, well, easiest answer for me, I'll give two answers. The easiest one, I'll start with that. I use Squid all the time when I need to get to some remote chain that we haven't added yet, and we need the gas tokens for it, and so it's just the easiest way to get it, and then we can fund our operations on that. So thank you, Fig, power user.
Thanks, man.
And of course, Hyperlane couldn't exist without IBC. In fact, I would go so far as to say that we view it in many ways as a sort of, spiritual successor, some type of inspiration. We spent a lot of time with some of the original authors of IBC the first go-around as we were developing Hyperlane to think about, okay, you guys built what we think is the best way to do this, and we view it as having, this set of limitations, one of them being just how extensible it is. And if we wanted to focus on maximal extensibility while maintaining that permissionless aspect, how would we solve this problem? And so very, very thankful for IBC. Hyperlane wouldn't exist without it.
Nice. I appreciate, we can go through all of them. I appreciate you building the future in the sense of we will get to ZK at some point, and you're making it happen. But Susannah, IBC is just kind of insane how easy it is to connect all these chains, and we add a new Cosmos chain it feels like almost every day, but it's probably a little bit slower than that, and that's thanks to the success of IBC as a implementation and as a protocol. And Hyperlane, you guys have been doing really well in the sort of roll-up ecosystem, so we're going to be expanding there pretty soon, and hopefully we get to work together
Please.
soon there.
Yeah, we've dedicated our company to implementing IBC, so that speaks for itself. I'd say, yeah, I really like using Squid. Like your guys, at least out of so many infrastructure apps, are actually one that was like one of the first really usable ones out there.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I personally use Squid a lot, actually, when I need to go outside of Cosmos that's like my default choice, like using Axelar. And I think I really like how Hyperlane identified like a bit of a niche that's like an unserved part of the market, like having a fast integration for modular ecosystem, and not like having to be tied into like, I don't know, I think that there's a lot of people want to use like layer 0, but there's a lot of like barriers and red tape to be able to do that. It's not permissionless. So yeah, I think that's like an astute observation for like carving out your area of the market.
Well, it's good to know that there's like a lot of love and appreciation. I think it's very much in the vibes here of Nebular. Get everybody to agree on
Everyone's
what's
fighting the same fight.
Sorry?
Everyone's fighting the same fight. Everyone in this room here, like we are trying to increase demand for crypto, and like we're all going about it in our same way, but everyone's in the same boat in that sense.
Now maybe talking about the, going back to the title of this panel, which is, interoperability and abstraction. Are we talking about the same thing? We've talked a lot about abstraction here at the conference. Like Agoric has been building this orchestration framework to help abstract away like all of the complexities for users to interoperate and integrate with all the different ecosystems. We were all talking about this sort of briefly before the panel. With abstraction, it feels like at some point, we're tending towards a race to the bottom where interoperability won't necessarily happen from the protocol level, but it will happen through oracles, through market makers and solvers, using interoperability protocols more of like as an oracle than an actual means to an end. So like, do you agree with this statement that, interoperability and abstraction tend towards being the same thing? And if so, like what does that mean for maybe not IBC specifically, but like all these protocols on stage, like your respective business models and your ability to generate revenue, if the majority of like the value is being captured by other actors?
Should I take it up? I'm happy to take it first. Generally agree with the statement that they are the same concept insofar as abstraction, right? If you think of any type of piece of technology, any type of application that you use outside of crypto, you never know what the hosting environment is, right? Like you're getting around town here, you're loading Bolt, because Uber doesn't work as reliably, and you don't know if you're running on GCP Europe 7 or if on AWS West 5, but in crypto we explicitly know that. And so if nothing else, interoperability is about the abstraction of that hosting environment, because right now we are, not only are we wildly aware of it, we need to hold an asset that is solely for the purpose of that specific hosting environment. So we're very intimately interacting with the hosting environment in a way that we're not in like any other mature area of technology. As to the portion insofar as business models, that's where I maybe long term, that looks different, but whenever someone's like, all that stuff, it's going to be a race to the bottom. Well, like in that race, as you get to the bottom, there's a lot of money to be made. It's, so 7 years ago, before I started my time in crypto, I was working on a trading desk at Morgan Stanley, and there's a lot of people like teaching finance courses at universities will tell you about like how markets are efficient and everything gets arbed away. What they don't know is a lot of houses, a lot of school tuition get paid by the people who arbed their way to that low price. So there's a lot of money to be made in that time. And certainly the opportunities right now are exceptional, especially in like the long tail of chains, which, Susannah earlier talked about kind of this spring of new rollups that's happening. And I won't say more about it, but certainly a lot can be done there, and so the business is booming, and I advise people to give it a look if they haven't yet.
So I heard you kind of mention solvers, market makers. So I think you're going towards abstraction as intents versus message passing bridges. First of all, to have like intent-based bridges, market makers and liquidity providers need to have inventory. So in the end, they still need more traditional bridges to actually manage that inventory. So as the actual intent-based bridging industry grows, so does the more traditional industry itself. Now, I see it myself as a short-term optimization. Basically, what you try to do is divide the most urgent need for the end user, get your assets immediately on another chain, with the less urgent need of a liquidity provider being paid back. There's still a big advantage to improving the more traditional message-based bridging layer, because if as a liquidity provider you're only paid back in a week, that means that managing your storage is actually extremely complex, right? Like managing your hundreds of millions across different chains with slow rebalancing is a pain. Well, if you can do that in, let's say, 10 seconds, now the system is extremely dynamic. This is still, to me at least, an unoptimal solution. Like really, the best solution out there that we can do is most likely a light client-based, ZK-based solution across rollups and chains with very fast finality, ideally like sub 1 second block times, while being able to generate proofs extremely quickly as well, because that allows you to have that same experience as intent-based bridges, getting your assets on another chain like within a second, without the need for anyone to actually manage assets across different chains. You can just burn and mint everywhere you go and still have that full security. That is, in the end, the system that, although at a security level is quite complex to implement, it's actually really simple to reason about. The system where we're in right now, I think you guys at Squid probably realize this is actually extremely complex to reason about, like XLR, because they allow anyone to transfer from any chain into any chain, needs to actually manage the assets that they have stored somewhere. And sometimes transfers will fail because they don't have enough assets available on a destination chain and they need to start rerouting. So really the golden solution here with burn and mint doesn't require this.
Yeah, I think the value accrual is really tempting to go into this barbell model where all of the protocols in the middle don't make any money, and then the wallets, or at least the APIs plugging into the order flow, and then the Ethereum L1 essentially, or Bitcoin are the only places which get value. But I agree that on the way to that end state, which we'll probably never reach because we'll always be innovating in the middle, there's a lot of money to be made. I think this is really interesting how in intents you don't actually need to bridge funds, and the market maker is able to fill an order on the destination chain just out of their own inventory, and they'll need to rebalance, like you say. But in reality, most market makers just rebalance via Binance or OKX or whatever because it's cheaper and they've got so much more inventory. You don't need, they have the liquidity there. But I think going into a world of hundreds and thousands of chains, that's Binance isn't going to be on all of those chains, so we'll need.
You think Binance
liquidity.
won't be on all those chains?
Not
No,
as
I
fast.
don't. You think? Yeah, maybe.
I mean, Binance has like a lot of listings, and I mean they're growing.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not Binance, but they might be able to get most of that inventory on like the top 5 exchanges. Right?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking more from an infrastructure point of view that they have to spin up nodes and security, like custody on all these chains. And there's a few different players probably that they have to rely on. But so you were going to say something.
I mean, like if you're using OKX or Binance to basically rebalance, then you're just using the centralized exchange as a bridge. Like I think you could implement Binance bridge in a day by just doing deposit and withdrawals, but with different chain IDs when you send it to the API.
Yeah, exactly. It's obviously not what we want as decentralized infra, but the point I want to get to with the intents is that the thing with the intents is you don't end up with as many messages going across these, all of you guys really. But what I think is really important is that you still need collateralization of assets across all of the protocols, and we've seen that value accrued to tokens which are securing assets, so or tokens, protocols, whatever. So we'll still need, IBC does secure a ton of value, so there's going to be value accruing to the projects around it in some way, I think. I mean, you guys have your own value accrual ideas, but
Well, I mean, like for IBC, it's like the protocol doesn't extract any value. So I kind of, I kind of do see interoperability as like somewhat of a race to the bottom, like long term, because like for a user, it's like all they really care about is that they can like do what they want to do quickly and cheaply, ultimately. And I, obviously I believe in like client-based interoperability, just as like a core component of these decentralized systems. But I think from a user perspective, if you get like a fast fill from a market maker, like that's actually just a better experience for you. Like you don't actually care that like underneath the settlement might take like, a few days and it's happening with a light client. It's all like at that top layer of, are you going to get that experience that you want?
What I'm hearing here is that perhaps there's a future in which retail liquidity and retail trading is mostly solved by this sort of like intent-based model, but that message interoperability protocols that allow for token transfers would mostly be used by market makers and institutions moving liquidity, moving large chunks of inventory across chain.
Yeah, and that's why both increase at the same time as well. Like as intent-based protocols serve more users, they can use the underlying IBC implementations, for example, to liquidity rebalance themselves. And right now, users rely usually on an oracle to get refunded. If you use a cross and you set your fee too low, it's basically going to be stuck in limbo forever until the UMA oracle tells the protocol that it hasn't been filled at all. And for that, you can use live clients as well to basically prove that it hasn't been filled in time.
Yeah, something you mentioned earlier reminded me of a topic we were discussing earlier, which is like, this. I think in the abstraction narrative, abstraction idea, like the idea that users aren't going to care which chain they're settling on, right? Like people throw around this idea of like, okay, if you're using some website or you're ordering something on Deliveroo, you don't care whether you're using Amazon or Google, and we were talking about how actually this might not be the case because people actually do care. Which chain they're settling on, right? If I'm like, if I'm bullish on one ecosystem or a particular asset, I might want to use that chain or be staking those tokens because I know that, like, A, I'm part of that community. Number go up for my bags. I might get some airdrops. I might get like some NFTs or some other benefit for utilizing that chain. So, in that context, does this kind of like users are not going to care idea even make sense? And like how does the user interface or like the UX of interoperability and abstraction account for that?
Of course it does. Of course they care. So in what you just described, people who are going to that chain to do that thing, they don't care about it settling there. They don't even know what that word means. They care about doing stuff on that chain. From their perspective, that is the app. That is ordering the drink, right? And so insofar as the app that is built is designed to be something where they don't care about it and they don't need to be affiliated with the asset, that's where they might not care. But again, so I hate the use of the word intense. I think it's like very, this is one of the things I hate about the industry the most through 7 years, is like we love using these very pretentious things. Like every one of us intended to come here, like we're not intent-based protocols, right? Like we just want to do things and we do them. So I want to use that app, I want to use that chain, I want to do that thing, and that is like what I care about. What I don't necessarily care about is like, let's say, someone builds like the next Axie on like Monad. At that point, I don't care that it's on Monad. I'm coming for the app. But like if I'm staking Monad because I want to earn like a staking yield, I care, I want to know. And that is the app, right? That is the thing that like I intend to do. That is the thing I'm trying to express. That's what I come there for. And so both of the, like you presented it as kind of like this dichotomy of these, it's either this or that. But it is not, I don't think it's like that, right? There are things that we treat as, we think of in circles like this as like being purely infrastructure, purely applications, but we use a lot of infrastructure in crypto as applications. Like, I want to do that staking thing. I want to, maybe get rewarded for using that chain. And so there, in that case, I care. But if I came for a specific app, like in that case, I generally don't inherently care. That's kind of how I think about it.
But I think it's like, how do you then define like when someone's going to care or not? Because, for example, like right now we're just like extremely token centric. Whenever we think about interoperability, we're not necessarily thinking about like interoperability as a means to access applications on another chain. We're just pretty much talking about like moving one token from chain A to chain B. So I think increasingly when you're actually using interoperability to use a specific application somewhere else, I think this is when it's unclear to me whether like people would care about like what's going on under the hood or not, because right now it's like your outcome is just like this token would appear on another chain. But it's like, if I like thinking about like the way I just like use things today, it's like you mentioned like if you're ordering something on Deliveroo, it's like actually I do really care about like what restaurant it's coming from, and actually I do care about the platform that I'm using to like make my order, because there's all this like reliability and how much I trust the platform is like the burger's actually going to arrive in like 30 minutes like it says it is, or and I feel like you can't say it's not a binary. I think it's really depends on whether like you're thinking of ETH as like an application or whether it's just ETH as like settlement and like going through that.
I think if users really cared that much about the underlying chain, we wouldn't have as many users keeping all of their tokens on centralized exchanges all the time. I think that shows that in the end they prefer good UX and a good way to manage their tokens over the individual chain. And even if they know about the chains they're using, they usually just associate it with the wallet, let's be honest. Like they'll say like Ethereum has a shitty wallet, Solana has a good one, and keep it at that. And I don't think it goes much further than that, and I don't think it should in the end. Like finally users should like the app that they use, which right now they think is Binance, right? They see that as the same as a DeFi application. And until we can really rival the UX of centralized applications, users will keep using those. And once we finally can do that, then we've achieved chain abstraction as well. Like I think it's going to be like an almost immediate flow into that.
Yeah, we think about this all the time because in our front end, users are coming to do all sorts of things, right? And often the chain is the product that you're coming to use. You're coming to get an airdrop, and so you have to go to Blast, or you've just got your TA airdrop and you move it somewhere else, or you have to go and claim it, get some gas. So then the chain is the product, but then there's the Binance use case where you have someone who just wants to get rich and they want to invest in something, and they don't really care where it is. They have no idea whether it's more secure on Polygon versus Ethereum or on Cosmos. So then there's that world which I think we definitely want to move towards. We want to have one platform. And Squid, we want to do this where anyone, no matter how used to crypto they are, they can come, they can get their fiat into the crypto ecosystem, buy any token on any chain. Because previously, you would have to go to Binance to get all sorts of different tokens. Because getting like Filecoin, Ethereum, Polygon, Cosmos tokens is a really difficult journey on most places. Squid's making it a bit easier, but we've still got a long way to go. So I think and then you've got the final use case where we've gone airdrops where the chain is the product, just getting tokens, getting rich. And then the final one, we partnered with a bunch of payments providers who are doing like real payments in all sorts of places. You can connect it up to Visa and send any crypto to pay with fiat in the real world. And those people don't want to know anything about crypto, right? They're just, one of our partners is working with Opera browser, which is, they have 400,000 users sending money to each other, and it's US dollars, but they have no idea it's crypto, and they don't know the chain, they don't even know it's crypto, it's money settlement. And that's a really nice layer end state of abstraction too. So,
Yeah, in that sense, like we use Revolut from time to time. Sorry, not Revolut. Wise formally transfer-wise. Some guy needs to get paid. Gives me his Revolut account, his Wise account. Cool. Send him $4,000. Underneath there is a very convoluted and complex network of things that, different financial institutions, different local entities that like facilitate that. I don't know about it. He doesn't know about it. Just worked. And so in that sense, hey, here's an application where like we didn't care about the path that it traversed. And so there will be applications, whether they're payments based or like say something like a Farcaster where we don't concern ourselves, but just kind of, I guess like most of us ended up echoing in the end, that the ones that concern the chain, again, like when you're there to earn the airdrop or you're there to like stake something, that in that sense, that is the app that you're going for, and there you do care.
Right, so I guess what you're saying is that all of the protocols on stage here will become a commoditized piece of infrastructure utilized by applications that are built on top.
That would be pretty great.
In a wise format sort of application.
Honestly, that would be great, right? Like, if you think about it, there is probably no network that its underlying parts are like more commoditized than Visa, and it is one of the most valuable things in the world. And because of its spread, it is so incredibly difficult to displace. And if you think about it, like we're talking about the intense part of the market a lot, in the last few days, and you have people complaining about paying $20 on like a $5 million transfer. Meanwhile, Visa is processing like a bajillion trillion dollars a day and charges the merchants like close to 3%. And so like talk about staying power and talk about like, if you read the history of Visa, there were so many, this is going to be a race to the bottom. Well, like they still haven't found that bottom. That's like one of the most valuable things on the planet. And it's everywhere. And when I say Visa, no one needs to think for even more than half a second to know exactly what I mean. So yeah, if that happened, it'd be pretty great.
So we've got 5 minutes left here. There's one question I wanted to ask, which is, is it a failure that Celestia rollups are mostly not using IBC?
Yes.
And why? How do we get into this situation? I mean, you're happy about Hyperlane being mostly used in Celestia, I guess.
I can tell you why. I can tell you exactly why too. It's the reason that we had to make Hyperlane is the reason that they're not using it. It's just, again, I love what you're doing. I think you're a wonderful person. IBC is just very difficult to extend. He knows all about it, right? He has a team of brilliant people working to extend it. It's just difficult. And if it wasn't difficult, Hyperlane wouldn't exist and IBC would be everywhere.
But I think the problem is like you're making a trade-off by using Hyperlane. You have to acknowledge that like most of the like roll-ups on Celestia don't have like fraud-proof support. They're not using ZK, right? So it's not enabling trust minimized interoperability. They didn't like plan ahead to enable that with their launch. Like we're ready, like we developed conditional clients. We have a Celestia DA client ready. We have the WASM-like client that can be used. We have a Tendermint client that will then check if the blob is included with the Celestia client. But it's like, yeah, it's not ready. It's not ready to be deployed because they don't have fraud proofs. There's issues with proving inclusion and exclusion of packet commitments. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, in my opinion, that there wasn't that kind of foresight to enable that like natively by default. And this gave opportunity to teams like Hyperlane to make a solution in the meantime. But yeah, I think it was the wrong decision from Celestia, to be honest. But that's my opinion.
And I agree with you. Like it took some time to, at least for Union, get our stack to be modular and useful enough to deploy it in different ecosystems. Right now, we have it such that it works for Arbitrum L3s, Base, Linea, and it's going to go live on Interchain as well. This took, to be honest, a year of R&D to get it to the space. And I feel also with IBC, the code base itself, although good, it suffered a bit at the same time while there was a bit of a leadership shift going on around the ICF/Cosmos SDK stuff. At least we noticed that on our end. And I feel that that's why it lost a bit of momentum about 2 years ago.
Why, what was the problem?
Airing of grievances right here. You got
So
2
we also
minutes.
had the shift
Do it.
from Tendermint to Comet BFT. We kind of had at some point, I feel like maybe not really this idea that it would be everywhere at the same time. And so the original code base itself was very much designed to be Tendermint only. And that took, I feel
Okay.
like, a year of like re-architecting to get it in that space to actually be widely applicable.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the. I didn't understand what you were talking about exactly.
Yeah, but
You can
again,
send a support ticket.
I mean, think he has a crack team of wizards, and it took them a year of R&D to figure this out, and that is an obstacle. Meanwhile, a month ago, I guess 2 months ago now, a team that has the largest oracle on Starknet. They never knew anything about Hyperlane. They ran into me at some place, and they're like, "What do you do?" I start telling them about it, and a month later, they had their code for the Starknet version of Hyperlane ready to go into audit. And that's a world of difference. And that's, again, first thing I said here, but like, the relationship to IBC is just make the similar principles. You have to make some trade-offs, but maximally extensible. And if not, like, again, I know that team. That is a world-class team. And that took a year. That's hard work.
Yeah, although I would say like the Hyperlane protocol and the IBC protocol are very different in the sense of the security IBC provides, the edge cases it handles. Hyperlane's protocol is indeed extremely simple to implement, gets you started off very quickly. I sometimes, although I love it, also disagree
you're
if
good.
that's something everyone should be using.
Of course, yeah. There's,
We have
Yeah.
30 seconds here. I think we may be extended by a minute. What are the trade-offs between Hyperlane and IBC that users should be aware of?
I would say like Hyperlane's protocol is the simplest, like send a message over here, deal with if it has been received or not, if it has gone missing somehow. You need to write all that code yourself. So getting started with implementing extremely simple. Once you write an extremely large protocol with acknowledgements, etc., you realize that now you slowly start to re-implement IBC yourself. And that's the point where you kind of go, maybe everyone should have been using a more bigger protocol out of the box.
no, he's not wrong. We don't do the axe. The IBC people are so upset about the axe. They lose their mind about the axe. Turns out, in the last 4 months, Hyperlane processed 4 million messages, did 2.5 billion of volume, spread to 50 chains. By some people in the audience here are running Hyperlane themselves on their own chain and extending it to others. And they survived without the X, but definitely people, this is the most recurrent issue that a bunch of folks with IBC backgrounds then, as Karel said, end up re-implementing with Hyperlane is like the ACK. They just love the ACK.
But I think it's like, if we're in a space where we're just like sending tokens and you just send them and you don't really care what happens, then yeah, it's like fine, you don't need the acknowledgement. But I think interoperability will be more than just like, fire and forget.
No, for sure. But,
yeah.
Aave is, I think most people here would agree, Aave is, if not the most consequential app in crypto, at least one of the 3 most consequential apps. Aave uses it for their governance messages, alongside, I will admit, Layer 0 and Chainlink. They don't seem to care about the ACK.
Yeah, we just, for example, had intent-based protocols as an example of something where we think it's going to move, and there literally the ACK is what you use to pay back the market maker, for example. And I think in general, like as we grow to thousands of chains, this whole situation becomes very complex. But it's not just about the X.
I think we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, guys. This has been great.